Joining me now, Asaf Sharif. He is the Israel Consul General. Let me get your reaction, first of all, to the call by the Secretary to end this escalation.
We already had a ceasefire. The war didn't start last week. We had a ceasefire for 6 months, and the Hamas was the terrorist organization who decided not to renew it. So after putting ourselves in restraint for many years, we moved from restraint to response, and this is the reaction. This is what happens now.
We just heard from Riyad Mansour, who is the Palestinian mission to the UN representative, who basically said this is a disproportionate response. In a period of a week, you have about 2,500 to 3,000 dead and wounded. The UN's count is that a quarter of those who have been killed have been civilians. Your response to that?
I don't think the numbers are right, but just to make sure, Riyad Mansour is a very nice person, but he himself cannot go to Gaza because Hamas will kill him, even though he's a Palestinian representative. There is no such thing disproportional when you're fighting against terror. The proportional thing was to shoot back missiles into the major population area in Gaza, but we're not doing that. We've been very successful in hitting terrorists and militants. We think that we hit almost 90% of the casualties in Gaza are militants and terrorists. So I don't think the numbers of 25% are accurate.
There have been many reports and many analysis that suggest that the longer this continues, obviously, the bloodier it's going to get. We don't know yet if the ground forces from Israel have moved into the heavy population centers, but surely that is coming, and we are talking extremely heavily populated centers, and there could be heavy casualties on both sides. In the past, the international outcry has only increased, obviously, in situations like this. How much international pressure is Israel willing to withstand?
I don't think there's an international power. I heard what the European Union said today, and they called our operation as a defense move. There are a million Israelis in the shelters right now. Million Israelis. People of Israel have been hit for the last 8 years, and now we started to respond. Israel, before we went inside Gaza, we announced to the Palestinian citizens that we are going into every area we went in so they can leave their house. Everybody who stays is a terrorist or somebody who wants to fight. They can move for 2 or 3 days out of their homes. We are doing everything in our power not to hit the Palestinian population. We have nothing against the Palestinian population, only against the government, which is a terrorist organization by the name of Hamas.
We heard from your defense minister that the stated goal of this operation was to stop these attacks, these missile attacks that were coming into Israel from Hamas. But the vice premier went further on Friday on Israeli television and said Israel must not end the operation with Hamas still in charge of Gaza, which is farther than either Prime Minister Ehud Olmert or the defense minister Ehud Barak has been willing to go. But is that the mission of Israel right now? Are you unwilling to end this until Gaza is no longer controlled by Hamas?
I think Defense Minister and Prime Minister are saying what the official position of the government of Israel. Israel has no intention of going inside Gaza and to stay there. We withdraw from Gaza completely, and we don't want to stay there any longer. If Hamas won't shoot at us, and he wouldn't have shot in the last 8 years, we wouldn't go in the first place. Our goal is to protect our citizens, and that's it.
So we're now less than an hour away from the meeting of the Security Council. Realistically, what do you think might be accomplished tonight?
Our goal is to maintain a sustainable and durable ceasefire. I'm not sure that Hamas is ready to do that. But in the last 8 years, I didn't see so many Security Council meetings when our citizens were hit. We are in favor of a ceasefire, but we want to make sure that the day after the ceasefire, Hamas won't start shooting again. We had a ceasefire until 2 weeks ago, and we saw what happened now. They used the ceasefire to get missiles from Iran, and now they are shooting 20 miles out of Tel Aviv, and million citizens are in the shelters. We cannot live like that.
Well, what would you see as the key points to a ceasefire that Israel could live with?
That the Hamas will lose its capability and infrastructure to shoot at us, and there will be no more tunnels, and we will make sure that the life will be peaceful for our citizens, and hopefully for the Palestinian people, who are, I think, hostages by their own government.
Right. And you would expect it to include some system of international monitors?
I think it's too early right now, but we want to make sure that we won't see these pictures again. Everybody who's in favor of peace and negotiation between us and the Palestinians should support this operation, including Mr. Mansour and the Palestinian Authority, because there will be no negotiation on two-state solution as long as Hamas control Gaza.
Israel's Consul General Asaf Sharif, you've been generous with your time. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.